Good evening, everybody. So today, it's going to be a different type of talk that I'm doing today. I'm really going to, my talk is centered around generative AI. This is a question that we have been asking ourselves ever since, ChatGPT came out in January. There's been a lot of hype, and we all see the usefulness of it. But something we've all been grappling with is what's the actual economic impact? How can it actually affect our companies? And this is something that we've been debating and studying at Dialogue for the last 3-4 months. And we've even set up a full-time team now at Dialogue in my team to build ChatGPT applications. But still, we were struggling to quantify what this actually means for the company. And we've developed a blueprint over the last few months. And then just a couple of days ago, McKinsey's came out with a report on what they see as the economic impact of these generative AI systems over the next 5 years. And their initial estimate, and they call it quite a low estimate, was that generative AI systems will add about $4.5 trillion of new value to businesses over the next 4 years. So it's huge. And what I'll do is, in my talk today, I'll walk you through how we feel at Dialogue, and it actually tallies very well with how McKinsey is looking at it as well. I'll walk you through some of those observations that we've had. So really, as you know, over the last few months, we've had all these generative AI systems which came out. Everybody knows about ChatGPT, where you can have human-like conversations with an AI. And then along with that, we had things like GitHub Copilot, which came out, which help people code. We had applications like Midjourney, which help people generate new images. So basically what this brought out was the ability for AI to create content, text content, create art, create music, create strategies. It's basically an AI which allows you to generate stuff that traditionally was generated by humans. But then the real power, taking this forward, is once these applications start getting integrated with those systems, those technologies that we all use on a day-to-day basis, the apps we use, the driverless car, shopping experience. It's really once that technology comes into that ecosystem that we will really start to see the value coming forward in that. But what you got to understand is that this type of generative AI technology is not something that just popped up in the last 6 months. It's basically the result of about 6 years of research that's been going on around the world, and a significant amount of investment that has gone into it. The estimate that McKinsey's came out with is that there's been about $12 billion spent on these generative AI systems over the last 5 to 6 years. And really what we are seeing now is the result of this. If you go back to the history of this, these generative AI systems were, the first true generative system was actually built by Google. But then it was OpenAI who first actually productionized it and brought it out, and it was ChatGPT that actually brought it to the public domain and made it available. And the real game changer with this technology is really, now if you look at how normal human beings interact with technology, it's always been in 2 ways. One is either through coding, where a programmer needs to give instructions to a computer on how something needs to be done. Or the other way was through graphical user interfaces. Those are the only 2 ways that we could interface with technology. And then we had these things like Alexa and stuff coming out, but they were quite limited. But what this generative AI technology has given us is a total new way of interacting with this technology, which is ability to interact with technology using natural language, which was never there before. And that just opens up a whole plethora of options on what are the type of things that you can do with technology. And that's what's exciting most people about this. Of course, there are some challenges associated with this. There is still a bit of a computational cost involved with running these GPT systems, but that over the next few years, we expect those costs to drop. because there'll be more companies doing it, computers will get cheaper, and this thing. And then the other challenge is how to build these systems in a responsible way. Building a system, a simple system may take you maybe a week, 2 weeks, but to build a responsible system, a system that doesn't do anything bad, that can take maybe 10 times as longer. And whether the companies are willing to do that investment on making their systems responsible as well is, that's a question for all corporates out there. But if you look at, and this is that breakdown of how McKinsey sees how the total economic impact is going to come out of this. What they say is the economic impact will come from 3 areas. One is cost impact use cases, but the really large use case is improvements in labor productivity, how it will help your people work better, do more with less going forward. And then, as at now, there are a few use cases which can also generate revenue. But in total, what they've found is about 2,500 different use cases which can lead to this impact. And I'll walk you through some of these. And these actually tie in with some of the work that we are doing as well. But they expect a value range of between about $2.6 to $4.4 trillion to be generated through this. And really through these 3 different verticals, which is labor productivity, cost impact, and revenue. Revenue is still, people are still figuring out what they can do with it. How can they use generative AI for new revenue? But that we are also finding out that the possibilities are endless. And this is a breakdown of how this affects the whole AI ecosystem. With traditional analytics and AI, the common understanding right around the world, at least my understanding working with lots of companies around the world, was that traditional AI usually gave somewhere between about 12 to 18% of extra revenue to companies by bringing in AI to your organization. But what McKinsey predicts is that the use of generative AI will probably increase that by about another further 10%. And that's in 2 steps. One is new generative use cases which will open up new opportunities for you, new products, and new revenue opportunities, and that probably will drive it up by about 2.6 to 4.4%, but it's an incremental revenue of about 15 to 40% just based on what you get through an investment in AI, if you do it properly. But also, by increasing productivity, they also estimate another 6.1 to 7.9% incremental revenue that you'll get on the investment that you made in AI. So that basically takes the value that you will generate by investing in AI up to possibly about 25% of what your current revenue is. And this is just a breakdown of where they see where the most impact is, and based on function of spend. And obviously, the largest value generator is in software engineering, software development, and custom operations, which is, I think, the most obvious one as at now. And I'll talk a little bit more in detail about that in my talk as well. And in addition to this, like Rukesh showed, one of the biggest value generators in how you do knowledge management. And that I'll talk a bit more about that as well as I go forward. So let's move into some potential use cases which we feel will help you. And actually, Ruki talked about a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about today as well. So the biggest transformation that most companies, and validated by McKinsey, and this is our view at Dialogue as well, we feel that the biggest transformation comes in custom operations. And that we feel that there are 3 main areas, 3 really high-value use cases we feel that we can address at the moment. One is enhanced customer service interactions, and that's through chatbots, right? The normal, what you, maybe a few years ago when we called maybe a bank or a telco or something, you always get call waiting. And the message is always, your call is important to us, please wait. And you end up waiting 1 hour, 2 hours. When I was in the UK, I once spent 5 hours waiting for a call to be, customer service call to be answered. But the message is always, your call is important to us. And no company ever came up with a solution for that, because you can't have an army of 10,000 people who are going to be answering calls. But now with this new ChatGPT type applications coming out, who can actually behave like humans and interact like humans and understand things like humans, it's actually possible now to provide that level of service where everybody gets personalized service immediately, instantly, and they solve your problem immediately, and they understand, they have more of a context of where you're coming from. So definitely the chatbot space, giving personal interaction, customer self-service interaction is definitely the lowest hanging fruit, and we are doing a lot of work on that at Dialogue as well. And then the two other ones, which I think Rookie gave a really good demo on, was improve customer agent interactions, which is basically what Rookie said, where you plug in a real-time feed of a customer's conversation into the chatbot, and then the agent basically reads out what the chatbot is proposing, just like the chatbot. And the beauty of this is that if you already have a chatbot that the customers have, you will have a uniform experience on whether you're on the chatbot or whether you're talking to a customer service agent, because they'll be both running the same type of operation. And that really means that your problems with training staff, the quality of interaction, and also because these chatbots can be loaded with some type of context of the customer itself, means that the agent will be able to get to the actual problem a lot faster without having to ask a lot of questions and what's going on, because the system will already know information about where the customer is coming from, what problems the customer has had. And then the final one, which Rookie also showed a demo on, was empowerment of agent self-improvement, which is, after the call is finished, you can get a transcript and get technologies like ChatGPT to summarize that document for you and ask a few questions. And the agent can then use that to learn whether they've missed certain questions, whether they've not understood the main reason for the call. And it's a way for both to do some quality control, but also for the agent to do self-improvement as well on the side. Then obviously there are, and this will affect customer service. So you get customer self-service, you get resolution during initial contact. That will reduce the amount of time that the customer has to spend calling and spending time with your agent. And obviously this all leads to reduced response time. And this will lead to increased awareness of your company, increased consideration, increased conversion, increased sales, and finally increased retention. So it all works into a much larger ecosystem through that. If you go into marketing and sales, on the B2C side, generative AI is being used extensively in the US. It's being used for efficient content creation of much higher quality and higher throughput, and also personalized content. Not content you create one bit of content for all your customers, but you can create personalized content for each one of your customers based on their persona, their needs, and stuff like that. Generative AI also brings in the potential for enhanced use of data. Up to now, you've always been limited to using the data that's only there in your databases, which is the structured data. But now with generative AI, what you can do is you can bring in things like social media posts, letters to the organization, even videos, audio calls of the customer. You can extract information from all that and convert that information into structured information. So which means that your information on the customer can be greatly enriched, which was really not possible before. It would have just been too expensive to extract that quality of data from using earlier technologies. But now you can get a much better idea of your customer and get a much better snapshot of who the customer is, what they want, because you can draw on more data sources and actually use this technology to do that. You can use it for SEO optimization, create more content, more personalized, more targeted towards the customer. And you can also develop systems for personalized product discovery. These are all things that were not possible before, or would have just been very, very complex systems to build. If you were trying to build an app for personalized content discovery, it would have just been way too complex. But now with generative AI, it just opens up a whole host of options. Similarly, on the B2B side, you can do enhanced lead prioritization. You can identify more about the customer. Same process as earlier. You can understand more about the customer by feeding in more data sources and understanding about the customer. And you can streamline your lead generation process as well. In terms of software engineering, once again, this is stuff that we are using internally as well. For inception and planning of your software systems, generative AI is being used by most of the top software companies now around the world. for system design, where you work through many, many designs. You can get the AI itself to generate these designs for you. You can help with coding, tools like GitHub Copilot. There are lots of tools like that coming out now. And also for testing. You can give your software and get the AI itself to test the software for you, to generate all the test cases. So that it's a huge, I mean, there were a couple of case studies published recently where there have been a couple of software companies which had bought GitHub Copilot licenses for all their stuff, and immediately they had found that there was about a 50% improvement in productivity by using these tools. And that for any organization, that's huge. So this is a breakdown by the generative use cases across the different functions. You can all access this report. It's on the McKinsey website. All these graphs are here. I don't want to walk you all through that. But as you can see, this has broken down the impact of generative AI across different functions. But the big one to point out is the first column, which is basically the one which talks about custom interactions. And as you can see, it's equal impact on just about any industry, whether you're banking or finance or manufacturing, telco, it doesn't matter. There is a huge impact on what you can do with this technology for your custom interactions. So this all are based on this technology called large language models. And large language models are essentially a new type of neural network, a new type of technology, which allows you to send input in as natural text. And these models have the ability to be able to understand this text and then either take some action based on that understanding or reply using normal text. And that, in its essence, is what are called foundational models. Of these foundation models, what we see is there are, most of you have heard of ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is really one of about maybe 200 being developed around the world at the moment. And they all have different functionality. They have all based on different specializations and all have different sizes, different requirements. Some are good at some things, some are good at other things. But the one that everybody knows about is ChatGPT. And ChatGPT is really built on a model built by OpenAI called GPT-3. The version that you'll access on ChatGPT is actually GPT 3.5, and they've also launched GPT-4, which is not available to everybody yet. I think it's available on the Azure framework. And this is that model which everybody is now used to. Essentially, these generative AI models are neural networks, which are really models of the brain. And what you have is individual functions which function like an individual neuron on your brain. And then they're all connected to each other, which gives them the ability to learn and adapt and generalize and all that. So the human brain, as far as we know now, has about 86 billion neurons. But the GPT-3 model has 175 billion neurons. So it's already about 3 times as many processing power as the brain. But GPT-4 has about 50 times this number of neurons. It's actually huge. But the problem with these systems is that because they're so big, you need a lot of data to train them. You need to be able to you need a huge quantity of data to train them from scratch. And you also need huge computational power to train them from scratch as well. So just as when they first trained GPT-3, if you took the most powerful server that's available on the cloud now, which is a A100 1024 processor, the A100 processor, they used 1024 of these machines, and it actually took 34 days to train this particular model. So, and the cost of training, every time you train GPT-3, it costs OpenAI about $5 million. And that's the quantum of this. And there's a good and a bad here. Because of this technology is dangerous and can do things, it's only very few people who actually have the capacity to build these systems and train these systems. Small companies, small startups just can't do it. They can't build a model from scratch unless they have $50 million of funding. So in a way, it has reduced the impact of this. But the way these are built means that because these are foundational models, you can actually build stuff on top of them. You can build useful applications like the stuff that we are doing now. Uh, of course, these systems have limitations. Just like any AI system, the system only knows the data it is trained on. And ChatGPT or GPT 3.5 is only trained on data till 2021. Uh, these systems can get it really, really wrong at times. They're called hallucinations. So these are things that you need to watch out for. And that's where, if you use it for your day-to-day business operations, you've got to be very, very careful. An output is very heavily dependent on how you ask your question. If you ask your question wrong, you can direct AI in something in a totally different direction. And big problem for most of y'all is that it's good for generic questions, but it's not relevant to your business. How do you convert these systems to work on your data? Because your customers will be interested in what your business does and what your data is and all that. So that's the question that everybody asks. It's good as a tool, it's good for writing letters and all that, but how do you bring it closer to your business? And that's where the options are there for customizing the system on your data, and I'll walk you through some of these options. So the first way of doing this, and that's what the demo you saw earlier where you upload a PDF, and you're able to ask questions on that. That's the first type of way of doing something called embeddings, where you directly run on the foundation model, and you don't make any changes to that. And that's very fast, it's very cheap. It's a quick way that a lot of people do it, but there are limitations here on the amount of data that you can use for an embedding-based operation, which is why even the demo you saw, there was a limitation of 3 PDFs. We've tried this up to about 50 PDFs at Dialog, and it works, but it's a bit slow and it's a bit expensive. So when your amount of data gets a bit larger, there's another option called fine-tuning. And fine-tuning is where you retrain the model, but you're only training a tiny part of it. And for that, the scope is, like you saw in the demo, you can't just upload a PDF. There's a bit of data preparation involved. But still, the cost of training these systems is significantly lower. I mean, we fine-tune lots of models, and we spend about $200 every time we fine-tune the model. So it's not too bad, but it's then trained on your data. But fine-tuning also, there's a limit on how much data you can use. So if you have a huge amount of data and you want to create your own LLM, then you got to go for retraining the LLM from scratch, and you create your own LLM. And this, means that then you will have a ChatGPT-like chatbot which is trained on your data. Exactly your data, it'll only know how to answer questions within that. But this, I warn you, can be quite expensive because you got to train these models from scratch. So, like I said, we at Dialog, we've invested heavily in ChatGPT, and we have a full-time team who are working on this now. We've got about 15 to 20 applications that we are developing internally. And one of the big things we've done is we've developed our own internal ChatGPT portal. And we have a couple of reasons for this. One was that we found that most staff at Dialog were using ChatGPT for writing letters, for contacting customers, for writing proposals. And for this is a huge security risk for us because we don't know who is accessing this data, who is collecting this data. So what we've done is we built our own internal ChatGPT portal on the Azure API. And that, on one side, we have the assurance that our data is not being collected. But also what we've done is this has been built into our enterprise ecosystem, where logging into this is through our Dialog login, the Microsoft login that they have. So and then every question and answer that they ask is logged on our system. So we have traceability on everything that's done on these systems. And then along with that, what we've also done is we've launched internal company policy where we've barred anybody within Dialog from using ChatGPT for any work-related item. They're not allowed to paste anything into ChatGPT, but by law, by regulation, we've made sure that if they want to do any company-related work, they have to use the internal portal. And then within our regulation, we have certain restrictions on the things that they can do and the things that they can't do. So on Dialog GPT, the one we've developed internally, what we've done is we've actually engineered the prompts so that if they try to do something beyond the scope of what Dialog allows them to do, the portal itself says you can't do this on our portal. So we've engineered the prompt. So basically, we've solved all the risk that we had with this system by introducing our own internal ChatGPT portal. And along with that, we have a bunch of other stuff that we are developing on customer service, marketing, UI, UX. We built 3 or 4 HR applications. For compliance and risk, for finance, we built chatbots where we uploaded all these documents and people can ask questions on HR documents, compliance documents, and all that. And we've got a full-time team who is working on generative AI. So on the security and governance side, really what we've done is we have this organization policy now for use of generative AI systems by Dialog staff. We are running on the Azure API. Access is through the organization login, and we made the chatbot safe by engineering the prompts itself to make sure that they can't use this for anything other than work-related items. And yeah, that's really the end of my talk. So really, I hope this opened your mind a bit and answered a few questions you all had. What's the real value of these generative AI systems beyond just a chatbot? And I think the future is now. Things are going to change over the next few years, and everybody is changing the estimates. So if you looked at the future of AI estimates that were published maybe last year, a lot of the stuff that we were predicting to happen in, say, 2030, 2035, if you look at the predictions of all the experts in AI around the world, those predictions have now been changed to 2023. So basically, the world is changing really, really fast. And this is, I think, a threat and an opportunity for all of us, because those companies which use AI the best will probably be the dominant players in the market going forward. And a question I get asked all the time is AI going to replace people? I don't think so. But every one of you is going to be, every single job in the world is going to be replaced by somebody who uses AI. I think that's a given now. Every single job, be a doctor, a lawyer, a marketeer, a strategist, a company CEO, those of you who use AI the best and know how to use AI the best will probably be much better at your job going forward. It's not that you can replace you with an AI, but if you use AI, you'll be able to do much more with the amount of time and effort you have. So thank you very much. Have a good night.